And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I am your host, Kim Davis. Today is Tuesday, August the 17th. Just have to pause when I say that because I can't believe it's August the 17th, but it is. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad that you have joined me here today. A lot is happening in the world of sports. And okay, so while we can't cover it all, we will get to some of the really cool parts. So, Houston Texans played their first preseason game over the weekend. And listen, let me just say this first. I recognize that it's preseason and that, the other team wasn't playing their starting quarterback and a lot of their starters, and we didn't see some of the Texan starters. That's the whole point of preseason, right? That's what happens. So, but when you look at this Texans team, I've just got to first say, before I talk about anything else in sports, I've got to give some credit to the coaching staff, right? David Culley, who is, really criticized and not given a lot of credit, and in some ways, maybe the conversation surrounding Texans' new head coach David Culley has been a little disrespectful. But listen, the way that team looked on Saturday night when they were playing the Packers in Green Bay, and yes, they did get a walk away with a win, and those wins don't count when the regular season starts. I get all of that. But that team was organized, right? They looked like they were well coached. And that may seem like, well, it's just preseason, Kim. It is, but have you followed this team over the previous years? Did you follow Bill O'Brien when he was the head coach of this team? They were the sidelines, and what came from O'Brien oftentimes seemed a little chaotic. It didn't seem under control. And so, while again, first preseason game, and the big scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything. But when you're watching a new team, a new coaching staff, if you will, with a new defensive system, of course, that is credit to the defensive coordinator, Lovie Smith. But when you're watching this new kind of regime, if you will, it was just kind of refreshing, right? I did a show the other night on KHOU TV here in Houston, Texas. And one of the questions was, what were you most discouraged by? And it's difficult to really have a most discouraging moment in the first preseason game because it's preseason. And also because the bar is set kind of low in terms of what you expect will happen with this team. But one of the things that was encouraging was just the way the game was managed. We didn't have any issues, or there was no talk about clock management, clock mismanagement, not using timeouts. And should they have gone for it a couple of times on fourth down, perhaps? And head coach David Culley addressed all of that. But again, it was just like, okay, yeah, regular football, not a whole lot of drama from the sidelines, and that's a start. So we'll get into a little bit about what we saw in terms of with the actual action on the field. Um, some of the areas that I think were interesting for me, we've been talking a lot throughout training camp about Davis Mills, the rookie quarterback, the third round pick that the Texans selected. That the thought is he's kind of a project player, but to see what he has, and he looked okay. He is a rookie. It is preseason, and he's still got to get more snaps. I just think it's way too soon to say, to really determine what you can and you cannot get from him. Tyrod Taylor will be the starter when this team opens this regular season in September. Tyrod played the first series, was 4 for 4, didn't do anything that you didn't expect, led them down the field, and they ended up getting a field goal. And one of the things that Coach Culley talked about after the game is that they've got to score in the red zone, right? You're not going to beat people scoring 3 points. So the red zone is something he talked about. I'm going to let you hear from head coach David Culley in just a few moments. But I think overall, my takeaway from the game was, there were some things that were kind of cool to see. Wide receiver Michael Conley looked really good, and that's going to be fun to see him play. The defense, had takeaways, and for again preseason, but for a defense that was at the bottom of the league last year in terms of takeaways, it is just a snapshot of what Lovie Smith is doing with his defense. I'll let you hear from Jacob Martin and Justin Reid in today's show, where they talk about the defense and Justin talks about, just the aggression. And again, the whole game plan is not in yet, because preseason is really, you're not going to show, no one's going to show everything they have, right? So a lot of the Texans players didn't play. Some of the people that would start, there were some offensive linemen who didn't even make the trip because of COVID protocols. Laramie Tunzel, who has tested positive for COVID. Head coach David Culley shared that with us on yesterday. And then Titus Howard was out, as was Roderick Johnson. They were out because of protocol. So they're just moving through it, they're just moving through it, and we'll have to see what happens as it relates to this weekend. The team heads up 45 north to play the Dallas Cowboys in their second preseason game, and they'll come back home, and they have the final preseason game at home in NRG Stadium against the defending champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know how much we'll see of starters in that game, but because it is the last game, maybe we'll see a little bit. Anyway, so that's kind of what's happening with the Houston Texans. For those of you who want to know, there is no Deshaun update. And last week, thanks again to our legal expert, Charles Drayton, who joined us to just share kind of put some legal insight, right, into the legal proceedings. Although, as I reminded you, he does not represent any of the plaintiffs, nor is he representing Deshaun. But just from a legal perspective, a lawyer with a lot of a long history in the profession could give us just a little bit of an insight into the process. Nothing's new, nothing's happened. And in fact, Deshaun was not on the practice on yesterday when I was out there. So that's all about that. And I don't really have a whole lot else to say about him, because there's nothing to say until there's something to say. And when there is, I'll be happy to share it with you. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, Sylvia, my sister joining. Thank you. And every time her profile picture is our mom, so that always makes me smile. Thank you for that. Good morning, Carolyn Moore. Welcome. It's always great to have you in the studio. And Marcus Hackett, welcome, my friend. Great. Oh my goodness, it's good to see you. And Deborah Aaron, hope you're feeling well. Thank you. That's one of Angel's biggest fans. So welcome to Chalk Talk. Thank you for being there. Chili Bill Smith, hello, my friend. All my personal favorites are joining us this morning. So welcome to the show. Thank you for that. Hey, Michael Broussard, welcome, all of you. It's great to see you in the house. And Patrick Trahan. What's up, Patrick? I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for being a part of the show. So listen, we're going to talk some Rockets a little later in the show. I'm going to let you hear from rookie Jalen Green, who is just exciting to watch. It's early, I get it, but I've been reading more about him. There's a great GQ article that was written about him. He is a really interesting young man. It's going to be fun to watch him play. Thank you, Marcus. You're very kind. But let's talk about these Texans. I'm going to first let you hear from head coach David Culley yesterday before practice, because he's usually been talking before practice. This is David Culley yesterday, again, kind of talking about what he saw over the weekend after, looking at film, and what they might do heading into come up to Dallas to take on the Cowboys this weekend. So here's head coach David Culley.
Blacklock was active at times against Green Bay. Where is he in his development? What do you need to see him do as training camp continues?
He's coming along fine, and the reason that's happening is because of the competition that those guys have right there. That's a deep group, and all those guys along with him have really were excellent from the standpoint of trying to put pressure and handling the run game, and they did an excellent job. I think they maybe rushed from less than 50 yards during the whole night, and that's a credit to those up front guys.
After watching it again, what did you see within those red zone chances that you'll have and things up and do to correct that?
Well, you know what? It's one of those situations where we've had inconsistency all during training camp right now, and it showed up in the game a little bit. And when we had the first time we was down there with Tyrod's group at 3rd down and 2, we basically if we'd got 1 yard on that play, we were going to go for it. And not getting that yard right there, is just something we got to be able to do, because this football team is going to be identified with what happens up front with our offensive and defensive line. And that was a situation right there where, we didn't want to kick a field goal. We wanted to go for it in 2 downs if we had gotten 1 yard there. But we just got to be more consistent there, and we're going to work on that more.
David, along with that, David, what was your assessment of the offensive line, play game? I know you didn't have a lot of your main guys up front.
Yeah, I thought they played hard. I thought they did a nice job in the run game of getting our backs to the line of scrimmage. I thought the protection was good. What I saw in those guys is what we have been seeing all training camp. They've been working very hard. And the thing about it is those guys have been switching around, as I mentioned before, all over the place. And, they kind of got solidified right there. And not having a bunch of those guys playing, I thought they did a great job of protecting the pocket and giving us a chance to run the ball.
But you would say y'all still need some work in the run blocking, though?
Oh, we do. And we'll get working that. We got to run it. Got to run it more. And we'll run it more, and we'll be able to see. That's the only way we're going to find out.
David, you can talk about the Ravens. That was one of the league leaders in aggressiveness on 4th down. And how do you feel about that in general, the trend of the league going that way?
Well, I think that comes with how you feel during the game. Has something to do with who you're playing also. Has something to do with how we were playing. I mean, we took that ball and went right down the field on them, and they were doing very well. And I told Timmy when it got down to 3rd and 2, I said, Timmy, you got 2 downs to get this if we can get a yard. And we didn't get it, but I had that feeling at that point that we were going to go for it in that particular situation where we are on the field.
That was head coach David Culley, kind of summing up a number of things from Saturday's game at Green Bay. And, of course, at the beginning, you talked a little bit about what you might see against the Cowboys in terms of, who will get more action, what they'd like to see happen. So that was him. A few little notes about things happening around the NFL today. Tim Tebow, his Hail Mary NFL comeback is over. If you remember, he signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars as a tight end. Yeah, he got cut today. So the Tim Tebow story for now is over. I say for now because it will undoubtedly resurface at some time in the future. Here's another thing that's interesting. The Atlanta Falcons reported that their players have reached 100% in terms of their vaccination rate. 100% for the Atlanta Falcons. So they are changing some of their, protocols and requirements as it relates to masks and what happens around their facility. So the Falcons have reported 100% vaccination rates. As it relates to COVID and the Texans, I mentioned at the top of the show, I believe that Laramie Tunsil has tested positive for COVID. He was out. We knew that he was in a protocol as well as in the game on Saturday's game, didn't travel to Green Bay. Laramie Tunsil, Roderick Johnson, and Titus Howard, all of the offensive line were out last Saturday because of COVID protocol, but it's Laramie Tunsil who has tested positive. Bradley Roby was back at practice on yesterday. He had tested positive and was out last week. So it is a very fluid situation as it relates to COVID. This is my moment to give you a reminder to continue to make good decisions, right? I have taken the vaccine. I'm encouraging you to take it. And let me just say this, if you're listening, I'm not judging you if you don't take it, but if you have not taken the vaccine and you see me, please don't be all up in my face if you're not vaccinated and not wearing a mask. Like, you can't do both, right? I just think respect. While I'm respecting your right to make your choice for yourself, I may not necessarily agree with it. If that's you, you do you. Just be mindful and at least wear a mask. And especially be mindful of children, because you may not know whether I've had the vaccine or not, or some other adult, but when you see a kid that's like 7, that he or she has not been vaccinated because it's not been approved for children under the age of 12. So I just want to offer that as we continue with today's show. So, hey, thank you so much. And let you hear also from Justin Reid. Now, Justin Reid is a safety, did not play on Saturday night in Green Bay. Nothing's wrong. He's a starter. They're looking at some of the younger guys. But Justin says he's excited about this Texans defense and what we can expect. Here's Justin after practice yesterday. And yesterday, it looks a little different, but we had to go on the bubble because at one point, standing outside yesterday, there was, and so, bubble. Here's Justin Reid after practice.
Oh, man, I thought it was excellent. You know, I kind of wanted to get in on the action myself, but it was fun seeing guys fly around, making plays. You can see the emphasis on what Coach Lovie Smith has been preaching on the turnovers. Honestly, should have had 3 more of them, but that's just continuing to find the ball, take advantage of those opportunities. Had 2 3-and-outs to start the game. Can't ask for a better way to go and start it. Great. Did an awesome job. You see, guys, it's just a lot more aggressive. Guys are downhill. I personally am a big fan of the 4-3 system a lot, just because it's a lot more aggressive and downhill. Guys are able to just make their reads faster.
For the confidence, the atmosphere, when you come off that first preseason game?
I think it's great for the locker room. You know what I mean? Like, you know, this is a preseason game. I mean, that's not, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, these scores and these settings are going to reset. But I think it just does a tremendous job for the locker room and guys being able to see that, hey, this system works. The plays that we're putting in, the atmosphere we're creating, if guys buy into it, it works. And we're going to get turnovers with it. So I think it's just really big for team morale in that sense.
With Trey getting that interception.
Oh, absolutely. He just got another interception today. You know what I mean? He's just continuing to buy into it more, and all it is experience and reps. You know, he's trained from a cornerback his first year in the league, and the more reps and more experience he gets, the better he'll get at seeing things faster. He'll be like, oh, I've seen this play before. I know I need a fit here. And so he'll just continue to get better. He's been doing a great job.
Justin, how much do you take pride in and embrace the role of becoming one of the big leaders on this team?
Oh, yeah, I love it. I love it. It's fun for me in the back end. Just because I like being the guy that kind of gets guys aligned. I feel like safety, middle linebacker too, but safety is also a position where you get to be kind of like a chief on the back end. You get to see the whole picture. You get to help put guys in the right spot. So I feel like my biggest job as far as on the rest of the guys on the team too is to be a resource for them, because if I'm playing my best ball and nobody else is, we're not going to win that way. The only way we're going to move this shit forward is we have to continue to get everybody on the same page and get better. So I want to get everybody in the lineup into their best position possible in order to make plays. So that's my job as well.
Who was the person that you looked to, or that kind of? I mean, I know you were probably always like a born leader, but like when you got to the NFL, was there something?
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky that I've had a bunch of guys I got to look up to. I got to look up to J.J. Watt, Jonathan Joseph, Tyron Matthew was a very strong emotional leader that came through. Kareem Jackson, just a pro's pro. So all those guys, I got to take a little bit of everything from them and add it to myself, and in turn try and spread that to the rest of the guys on the field around me.
Just this is the first time you're not going to be playing with a new safety next to you in your career.
Great. It's awesome.
What
It's awesome.
What are some of the benefits of that, having a
Chemistry, man. Me and E. Murray and me and Lonnie, we just know each other. Like, I know their strengths and weaknesses. We already have a chemistry going to where I know the spots he likes to be on the field in certain coverages. He knows where I like to be at. The communication is there. We're speaking the same language. Even terminology that we had from last year, we can still use those same terms together. We just are able to use things from that experience together in order to be just tighter, man. You know what I mean? So it's really nice that I get to have a partner in crime that I've had before for the first time.
So that was Justin Reid. After practice yesterday, talked about a number of things, likes this defense. And as he said, it's still preseason, and so they haven't even gotten to the game plan yet, but he likes what he sees, and there's a lot more to come and a lot more to see. A couple of other things happening around sports news today. Patrick Beverly traded for the second time in 3 days as the Grizzlies send him to the Timberwolves. So that news happened. Also, Joel Embiid signed a big extension. He will be in Philadelphia for a little while longer. He's getting the Supermax. Reportedly, he's getting $196 million for 4 years. That is the extension. So it's a Supermax deal, and it will keep him in Philly through at least the 2026-2027 season. So, of course, he signed with the Sixers in 2017. And his deal now is the total deal with his initial deal, and what he gets is guaranteed a total of $261 million. So, congratulations to Joel Embiid for getting paid. And so, listen, I mentioned Jalen Green. I'm going to let you hear from him a little bit before we get out of here today in the show. he is talks about his upbringing a lot. Not in the clip you're going to see. The clip I'm going to show you is him at the game after the game last week, summer league game when the Rockets played Detroit. So what you had was a lot of focus on the top two rookies that was selected in this year's NBA draft. It's Jalen Green from the Houston Rockets, and he talked about just playing in a game and what he expects from himself. But he's grown up a lot. So there's some articles, and I hope that once COVID's made things difficult, but I really hope to have a chance to sit down and chat with him at some point because he's a really interesting young man. Smart. He's smart, and he seems to be very thoughtful. He's glad that he's in the league. He didn't want to go to Detroit, so being the second pick kind of worked out for him. Of course, being the number one overall pick is always probably the coveted place to be because that's the top. But because he's the number two pick and the Rockets had the second selection in this year's draft, he is a Houston Rocket instead. So I'm excited to get a chance to cover him and watch him play and see what he and this young Houston Rockets franchise winds up doing. I mentioned the Houston Astros. I didn't, but in my lead up to the show, I don't have any sound today that I'm going to play. But the Astros are on the road. They lost at Kansas City last night, and they are still holding on to that 2.5 game lead in the American League West. So listen, there's still quite a bit of baseball left. They're back in town later this week. I'm going to try to get out to a game maybe on Friday night. They play. The Seattle Mariners are in town this weekend, so they are on the road, and then they're back home for the Mariners. And then they're home next week against the Royals. I'm not really excited about watching them. And then at the end of next week, they head to Dallas to take on the Rangers. So that's what's kind of upcoming or coming up, if you will, with the Houston Astros. So there were some questions last night about Dusty, I guess pinch hitting for for Jordan Alvarez, and I'd seen something about it, and I was going to try to give you the update. But here's the thing. Before I do that, I want to say this. I think it was after last week's show. I'm sure it was. We got the news last week of the really tragic death of Leroy Burrell's son, Cam. And I just wanted to publicly offer condolences to Leroy Burrell and his family and prayers to them. Lost their son. He confirmed that it was the young man committed suicide. Losing a child has got to be tragic. Losing one that way is probably a whole nother level of devastation. And I bring this up just to say there's so much going on, right? You just don't know what people are going through. And in any way that you can show compassion and offer some kind words to somebody, I just encourage you to do that. Like everybody's dealing with something. COVID brought on a lot of isolation. I think it was heightened because of COVID and people were home in addition to just the other stuff they're feeling. And it's just a lot. So if you know somebody who's struggling, you think they might be, reach out to them, check on them, and just whenever you have a chance to say something kind or do something kind, I'm not even talking about something that costs you anything. I'm just talking about behavior and compassion. When you can show that, I just encourage you to do it. And when you are moving around and somebody does something that you think is like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he or she did that. Take a deep breath, count to 10, and just say, I don't know what they're going through right now. So I'm just gonna move on from that and wish that person the best. I think if we do that, it won't just be helpful for other people. It can be very healing and therapeutic for us as well. So I wanted to share that. That happened after we were on the air last week. So condolences to Leroy Burrell and his family, and to everybody who was connected to the young man. And again, compassion. At the end of the show, I always say, do something kind for yourself and something kind for somebody else. It's not just a little thing I say. I really, really mean that. So when you can do it, please do that. All right. Kindness is is free. Like, it's just free to be kind to people, and what we say and how we say it can make the difference in how somebody is getting through their day. Words matter. And sometimes it's not okay to say, well, I'm just being honest. You've heard me say that before here. Think about how what you say makes somebody else feel. And while it may not be your intention to make them feel some kind of way or sad or whatever, I think we have a responsibility to just think about, is what I'm about to say necessary, right? Is it relevant? And what impact will it have? And I listen, I'm giving you tips from my communication training, right? When I work with executives and people about communicating. Communication's huge, right? It's one of the things that I speak about, but it's a part of every relationship. And when you listen to a lot of these tapes from interviews from players and coaches, you hear them talk about communication. It is everywhere. And so we can all be better at it. So that's my little pep talk about encouraging and being kind and using your words, being more gentle and ginger with your words today. All right, so back to football. The last Texans interview I want to play for you is Jacob Martin. Jacob Martin was a linebacker. If you remember, he came to Houston a couple years ago in the trade that sent Jadeveon Clowney away from Houston, and he's played linebacker, and he is now a defensive. He's playing defensive lineman, defensive end in this 4-3 scheme. And here is Jacob Martin talking about the defense and in particular the defensive line.
Everything starts up front, and I said earlier in the offseason that the D-line brings the juice, D-line brings the energy, and when the D-line's up, the rest of the defense is up, and when the rest of the defense is up, the team goes. So, I truly believe that the energy and the effort, comes from the D-line in terms of how our team responds and plays.
Does it start with Bobby? He has played for a linebacker before. What's he like as a defensive line coach? Kind of the attitude?
I think if anything, he can be a lot more hard-nosed. There's less responsibilities on us in terms of coverage, and how we affect coverage is through our pass rush, and really just focusing on the small details of our game, and being violent and being physical. Those are things that we work on and preach all day and every day, and just being enthusiastic. You get paid to play football, so it's been real dope.
In terms of the defense, now that you've had more time in the system, are you feeling pretty comfortable just with it and liking what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think it's like a homecoming for me. Being able to put my hand back in the dirt. I was at Temple for 3.5 years and played true defensive end, and it's dope. I'm a lot more comfortable playing defensive end rather than outside linebacker, honestly. So it's been nice. It's been really nice to get back to that.
So that was Jacob Martin, and when he talks about putting his hand in the dirt, I mean, he's talking about defensive linemen play with their hand on the ground, right? They start in their hands on the ground. Linebackers are not. I mean, it seems simple, but that's what he meant. And so for those of you who know that, great. I know that many of you who follow may not know all of the terminology, and you're saying, like, why is he talking about playing in the dirt? So not like technically playing in the dirt, but that's what he means by putting his hand in the dirt. Marcus said that's not enough for him to get out of bed during the playoffs and go and play. I'm not sure if that is, Marcus. I may have missed it. Maybe it's in response to one of the quotes that part of the interview that you heard. Good morning, Bobby Scott. Welcome. And Sanseria, thank you for being a part of Chalk Talk today. Hello. I mentioned that Dusty Baker took Jordan Alvarez out last night. He said the reason was he said that Alvarez had an upset all game since the first inning, so that's why he took him out. So I just like to mention that because for some reason Dusty Baker, I think, gets an unfair amount of criticism from local media here in Houston. Every single thing he does is scrutinized, and there's some who just have not a lot of positive things to say about Dusty Baker. And I'm not saying that he should never be criticized if there's a move that is suspect, but it is more than I think is warranted. And so that's why I wanted to mention that, because there was so much talk about how do you take out Jordan Alvarez? And my thought was, well, it must be a reason, right? He didn't just take him out because he's trigger happy. I mean, clearly it's something that, anyway. Yeah. Okay. I see you, Marcus. He said it's about Joel Embiid's contract. I got you. Thank you for clearing that up, my friend. Yes. Uh, yeah, it's a lot of money. A lot of money to get out of bed, right? So yeah, I'm still playing around with this new platform, you guys. I told you before that it is I've switched over. This platform has technical differences from the last platform I used, but so I'm getting the hang of it. So if you see me pause sometime, that is what that pause is about. Before we leave today, I definitely want to make sure that I let you hear from Rockets rookie Jalen Green out at the summer league. I haven't watched every game, but I have watched him play a bit. And I mean, it's summer league, right? They're rookies, man. Most of those guys won't be on this team, but he's fun to watch. And I want to let you hear from Jalen Green after he played last week. And the matchup that people were watching was him and Cade Cunningham, the Pistons pick. And of course, Cade Cunningham was the first overall pick in the draft. So let's see here.
Jalen, 25 points. We discussed at half that you felt like you started off a little too fast. How do you feel that second half came to you?
I feel like I slowed down a little bit more. I was still moving it fast. Still got some turnovers. Caused a little offensive transition for my team. But, I mean, at the end, we got the dub. We locked in defensively, and, yeah, we got the win.
Yeah, 2-0 so far here in Las Vegas. You headlined a very deep draft for this Rockets team. All 5 starters in double figures, including Sengun and Christopher. Yeah. What are you learning about your teammates and this youth movement coming in Houston?
I think the biggest thing is just moving without the ball. I mean, we all ball dominant. We all known for scoring on our team back in high school, college. So we trying to figure out how to play with each other. Me and Josh kind of already got it figured out because we have chemistry from the past, but we're trying to get Alp more involved in the rest of the team too. So trying to figure it out.
Well, on the other side, you're used to battling with Cade. You were even teammates with him. But what was it like going up against him for the first time as pros?
It was fun. He's a good player. He battled back. Yeah, I mean, I have respect for him. So that's the reason we come on the court and we're going to battle it every time. So it was a good game overall.
I mean, we know you have respect for him, but you've made it known that you felt like you're the best prospect in this draft.
Yeah.
How big has your chip been playing here in Las Vegas?
My chip been super big. It started at draft night when I got drafted number 2. I felt I was number 1, but I mean, it's just the work I gotta put in. I gotta keep the chip on my shoulder from where I'm from. My family installed it into me, so I'm just keeping getting better every day.
Well, you guys are 2 wins so far here in Las Vegas. Thanks for the time.
Oh, man, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content.
Let me stop that one. That was Jalen Green last week facing off against Cade Cunningham. And, it's way too early to make a whole lot of, what we saw in that game in terms of, which player did the most or looked some kind of way. I just think it's kind of exciting to see. There we go. Okay. Oh, so listen, I'm playing around with the platform, as you can see. If you're watching the bottom of the screen, this show is brought to you by Kimmy Treats, okay? That's where you can go online, kimmytreats.com. There's the great popcorn, there's the hand-whipped body butter, and Kimmy Treats is the title sponsor of Chalk Talk. So you heard from everybody we wanted to hear from, and before I check out of today's show, I started a little bit later, so thank you guys for tuning in and paying attention. If you will, be sure to share this broadcast, however you're watching it. If you're watching it on Twitter, if you're watching it on YouTube, if you're watching it on Facebook, and if you're watching it on LinkedIn, because we're live in all those locations. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Chalk Talk. In some of the places you might be seeing Chalk Talk for the first time, we are here every Tuesday live, usually at 11 a.m. Central Time. And there are going to be some snippets that we're doing now that football season, that everything's kind of going on at once. We're going to do some other little live segments. Won't be full shows, but throughout the week. So again, as always, let me hear from you. If there's something that you'd like to see on Chalk Talk, if there's somebody that you'd like to hear from on Chalk Talk, you can, however you're watching the show, send me a message. You can also always send something to my email, and that is, let me see here. I'm gonna put that on the screen too, because it allows me to do that. What you see on the screen right now is my So you have the email address on the ticker. You also have the title sponsor on the ticker. And what you see displayed, Kim Davis, that is my Twitter handle. If you're not following me on Twitter, please do so. Also follow me on Instagram. I put a lot of, no, that's not what I want to do. Content on my Twitter account, also on my Instagram account. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you're not following me on Twitter and on Instagram, you can do that. And I would love to have you be a part of it. So you're watching Chalk Talk, and those are places you can follow me. If you want to email me because you have something you'd like to add, or you'd like to ask about the show, or you'd like to see, email me, kim@kimydavis.com. And of course, you can always reach me on whatever platform you're watching the show. So listen. Oh yeah, Patrick makes a great point. He says Dusty Baker has always been a baller as a player and coach. He is eons ahead of his media critics. It is a joy to have him in Houston. It absolutely is, Patrick. I just, I can't balance out what everybody else does, right? But I'm always, and it's not just because I'm a personal fan of Dusty's. The reason that I'm a fan of Dusty's is because of what he's done in the game, right? Because of what he's brought to the game. And I just think he deserves a whole lot more credit than he gets. And I'm going to leave it at that as to why there seems to be so much criticism about him, okay? I just am going to leave that right there. So, listen, thank you guys as always for being a part of Chalk Talk. Before we go, I want to say this. We have this news this week about what's happening in Afghanistan. The media reports and again critique about the United States pulling out of Afghanistan. Wherever you think about that, it is interesting because here's the deal. When was the right time? I don't know. And so I'm not going to have a whole discussion about the war in Afghanistan, but I wish people had that same energy. I'm getting this from somebody that tweeted it earlier. I didn't even come up with it. He said, and he's a veteran, he said, before you talk about the United States pulling out of Afghanistan and what it means for the Afghans, did you have that same energy about what happens to veterans, Americans who are veterans and they come back and they're homeless? Like, are you as concerned about that? If you've not talked about that, then don't, he's like, basically miss me on this talk. And so I defer to him because he is a veteran. And so, and for those of you who are veterans that watch the show, thank you for your service. But here's what I want to say. The biggest threat that's facing us outside of COVID, right? Because that's real. So the COVID, the Delta variant, but it's voting rights, right? Don't lose focus. Don't get distracted. Pay attention and do everything that you can to make sure that your representatives and officials and leaders are aware that you're not okay with these voter suppression bills that are popping up, not just in states like where I live, Texas. Of course, we have to be the leader in things like COVID voter suppression, but it is still my home. I'm here, you know, but it's real. So I just want you to say, look, keep the main thing, you know what we say, don't lose focus on what's really, really important and what we should be really, really making sure that we are paying attention to. So you're right. Bobby says voting rights, you know, it's all about it. It's all about it. And we've got to make sure that we continue to have it, because otherwise none of the other stuff is going to matter. All right, everybody, thank you for being a part of today's show. Thank you for tuning in, because we started a little bit later. And I will see you next Tuesday. Follow me on all of my platforms. I'll be giving you updates on Texans and maybe some Astro stuff and whatever's happening with the Rockets, any big news. And as always, listen, remember, do something kind for yourself. Seriously, for real. It's not just a saying. And do something kind for somebody else. Have a great week, everybody. I'll see you next week. And I almost said on Beyond the Headlines. It's so bizarre. That's the show I used to do at Channel 2. But I'll see you next week on Chalk Talk.